Welcome to the Rising for Women podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Merlo-Booth, and I believe the world will be changed for women when we change how we walk in it. So each week, we're going to have hard conversations. We're going to explore new options. Some of them are going to be hard options, and we're going to have some real, straight talk. We're going to do that because I have faith that women can handle it. Hey everybody, I'm Lisa Merlo-Booth. Welcome to the Rising podcast for women. Joining me today again are Arlene Newman and Dee Marcotte. Hey guys.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi.
Our topic today is dating. Dating. And in particular, we want to talk to the women out there and men who are listening. We are going to tackle what does it look like if to date with a grounded, powerful strength. And in particular, when you're dating for the purpose of having a long-term relationship with somebody. So we're not talking about a one-night stand. We're not talking about dating, just for fun. You just want somebody to hang out with. This is particularly for the women out there who are looking for a significant other, male or female in their lives to share their life with. And so that's what our topic is today. And let's jump in a little bit. So our first question is, okay, we have, our own private practices that we see all the time. What are we seeing? What are women doing in their dating relationships right now that is just killing them? What are women doing that's harming us?
One of the first things I see is kind of this idea of caring more about what that person thinks of them than what they think of the person. It's all about, do they like me? Do they think this is okay? Do they think that's okay? How should I be? How, all that kind of stuff, rather than, well, what do I think of this person? And how are they, are they fulfilling me? That sort of thing.
Oh, yeah. That's great. I love that. I see that a lot. It's like women lose themselves a little bit, and they're using the other person as a mirror to see if they're okay or they're not okay.
Right.
I often see one of the things that drives me crazy, probably my biggest toleration, is women who are having sex in order to get the man, right? Typically to get the man, not so much to get the woman if it's a gay relationship, but if it's a heterosexual relationship, they're having sex not on their terms, not when they want to, but they're doing it because they don't want to lose him or they want him, So I see that all the time with dating. And a lot of divorced women are going out and they're having sex to prove that they still have it, to prove that they're still attractive, to still, so I see that a lot as well.
Right. What I see mostly in my practice is the women that don't really see who's in front of them, that they have a certain desperation, especially at a certain age where they feel the biological clock is ticking and they want to have a partner. They don't look at the signals, the red flags. They want the person to be who they imagine them to be, especially if they have a certain external persona that looks professional and appealing. And then they miss a lot of clues and end up in not very, very good places with those types of partners.
Totally. And I see women, especially if they have that kind of desperate piece where I have to be in a relationship, I don't want to be alone, or I have to have this baby or whatever, they settle for a lot. They lower their bar and they lower the bar and they lower the bar. And I've had, too many women tell me, well, being with somebody is better than being with nobody, right? At least I have somebody. And so they settle.
And then they pay.
And
There's a cost to that. big price.
You know, we say big cost. Well, what's the cost?
No, I see women becoming very insecure, self-hating, depressed, really lose confidence, lose their self-esteem, because basically they've given themselves away.
So
they're prolonged, and like you were saying, Arlene, they lose more of themselves in the process.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, so it's the double, you know, so not only did they not prevent feeling bad, but in this case, then they also have lost themselves and their sense of themselves and who they are and what they like and what they want, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And their confidence.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what are some other things that they do that we can think off the, you know, off the top of our heads around? They go into dating and they what?
They excuse bad behavior.
Yeah.
They
Can I read you
rationalize.
something about bad behavior
Oh
here?
yeah, definitely.
This is in the paper.
Okay.
And this is from a woman who is 60-ish, so even an older woman, and has decided it's kind of this thing of picking one thing to determine the person loves me and then not paying any attention to the bad behavior. So he tells me daily, it's a long distance relationship. He tells me daily that he loves me, and he got a tattoo with my initials. So this is true love. So she's still working. It's an 8-hour drive to see him. He's retired, but she's the only one who ever drives to him. Peace. She says, I love him, although he is very moody and has been verbally abusive. But I love him. Recently, they had a small argument on the phone. She suggested they cool off and talk before the end of the day. She's not heard from him for 2 months. But she has apologized via email, voicemail, text. So kind of this constant, let me explain to you why you should come back.
What did she apologize for? I missed what she did.
She asked for time to cool off.
Oh, okay. All right.
You know, this has even happened before, where there's been these times he hasn't talked to her for 6 months.
Wow.
Where she keeps trying to get it to go back together, and she's wondering if he's ghosting her.
Okay, so that's such a great example. Okay, you want to know what women do? This is what women do. And by the way, her age has nothing to do with it. I have seen women in their 20s do this. I've seen, you know, women in their 30s, 40s. Like this is
across the age spectrum.
So,
women do this.
Right? So one, he tattoos her initials, so he must love me, right? Another, so other men may not tattoo their initials, or women may not tattoo their initials, but if they say they love me, then they must love me. So that's something. Well, he or she says they love me, so they must. She's driving 8 hours, but he doesn't drive. He loves you, but he doesn't love you enough to drive 8 hours, right?
He's retired, and you're working.
And he's retired and you're working. Oh my gosh, I missed the fact that she's working.
Yes.
He's verbally abusive. First off, if you're dating somebody who's verbally abusive, you better know immediately your relationship and your life is going to be pure hell. Because if in the early parts of dating, he's already verbally abusive to you, you are screwed. I'm just like, can I just put that out there?
Yes.
So that's enormous. No contact for 2 months. 2 months, no contact, no texting, no writing, no phone calls, no, hey, you know, listen, give me a little time. Let's talk by phone, but I'm upset. None of that. Showing you that he is not somebody who can work through issues with. He's not somebody who's willing to problem solve and have conversations. When things get hard, he's going to run. And so you need to know that, and not, please don't apologize. What the hell are you apologizing for because he's not talking to you? So that's
It's his bad behavior. It's his bad behavior. He's running, he's punishing, he's withholding, he's withdrawing, he's doing all this stuff. He needs to apologize for his bad behavior.
Yes, that is such a, so this is what women do. This is what women do. Women, you need to wake up. We need to wake up. And if it doesn't feel good, it's not good. If it doesn't feel good to be in a relationship with somebody, or if you have to track them down, he's being verbally abusive to you and you need to apologize in order for him to talk to you, please, please.
Well, but I think on that,
Get out.
On that goes the idea of, well, if I just say the right thing or I just do the right thing, then he'll change for me.
No.
So I think there's a big thing in dating about, oh, I don't, like, yeah, he's done that or this or that, but if we were really together, he wouldn't do that.
Yes.
And it's like, no, he's telling you what he'll do.
Oh, and that's so true. You know, along with that, the other thing is if he, like, so he's done all this thing to all of his other girlfriends and all of his other wives, but I'm different.
Right.
I'm different. So he's three affairs over here and he goes to that one over there, but he won't do that to me because he loves me.
Right.
The best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. And not that you are not an amazing woman. You are probably an amazing woman.
But if he is an ass with other women, he's going to be an ass with you. Because it's about him and not about you.
Not about you.
And if you make it about you, then you're going to be letting him off the hook and not hold him accountable for his bad behavior. And you're going to be in deep.
And I think this is true, though, too, even in lesbian relationships or gay relationships, is that we're talking about the person on the other side and whether that person's man, woman, fluid, whatever, in between, if they are acting in this way where no matter what their words are, their behavior is treating you badly, it's not going to change.
It's not going to change. And so women, you know, one of the things that they do horrifically is they don't see it. They minimize it, they explain it away, they blame themselves, they do all these things, and they don't actually see it and see it for what it is, which is the other person's issues.
But I think we need to address something. I think that we have to acknowledge that that kind of behavior is very triggering, and it triggers very primitive kinds of fears.
Yes. And
so it is very easy to let those fears take over.
So I love that you said that. That brings us into our next question. Why are women doing this? So that's exactly, they're doing it. Part of the reason is exactly what you said, Arlene, is it triggers a deep, deep core. So Arlene, speak about that. Speak to that a little bit.
I think it triggers very early fears of abandonment and being helpless and being alone and helpless, and feeling that you need to hold on to the person no matter what. It doesn't, it's like a child who will hold on to the parent for dear life because they need that parent. And we bring that into our adult relationships, we're in big trouble.
Right.
But it operates, and we have to be aware that it operates. And we can't allow ourselves to act out of that place.
Right.
And I think we've been taught a lot too, though. Like we've been taught, well, when are you get married? When are you going to get married? When are you going to marry? Well, you don't have to worry your poor little head about that because you're going to be married, you know, and that sort of stuff. So there's a big push to the idea you're going to have somebody else to take care of you, kind of thing, as one thing. And somehow you're not truly a woman if you're not in a relationship.
Or certainly not a worthy one.
Certainly not a worthy one.
Not a worthy woman. Right. Well, what's the name for a woman that's never been married, like a spinster? right? I mean, it's like,
Right.
who aspires for that?
Right.
Well, and it's a fault kind of thing. It's sort of like, so you, woman,
That's right.
must not be doing the right thing,
Right.
Right.
or you would have a relationship.
That's right.
And we're taught and we're told 1,000 times, he's a good guy, he's got a good job, he's got a good money, he's cute. And
Right.
you know, all got, you know what, boys will be boys, they all like to play, boys will be boys, they can get mad. And so in 1,000 ways, we're taught to not see what we see, not feel what we feel, and to just, you know, be nice and go along. And if you get this nice quote unquote guy, then, you know, you should take him and run, right? And do whatever you need to do.
It's a good catch.
He's a good catch. He's a good catch.
He doesn't beat you.
He doesn't beat you.
He doesn't beat you.
And he doesn't drink. And he's not a womanizer. He makes a good living. What else do you want?
Right.
How about how you feel with him? That doesn't even come into play. And that gets passed from one generation to the other.
Yes. And the bar is so low. And I certainly think, I hope it's gotten better. And those messages are still, they're so subtle and underground and sometimes not so subtle, you know? So we're taught it, we have this deep, you know, kind of pull about our worth that goes to the core when somebody rejects us, and us being alone, we don't want to do that. I think another reason why women do this is fear. They're afraid that they can't do things on their own. They can't, you know, they just can't manage it. And patriarchy and a thousand reasons why we do it. I think it's really important for us to slow down. And if you're dating and if you're in those dating relationships, you want to recognize some of these core messages that you're given and slow them down and test them, because we have these messages all the time. Why are women, you know, trying to sleep with men in order to get a man? Well, look at any magazine cover for women. How to please a man in bed, how to get a man, how to, right?
How to keep your man.
How to keep your man, right? I don't see too many how to keep your woman, right?
It's true.
I don't see that very often. So that's the why. We talked about what it's costing them, which is a lot. I think one of the other things that's costing them that we didn't brush on is if you go into a relationship and you go into a serious dating and you find your lifetime partner and you marry them and it was the wrong pick from the start, the cost could be a really toxic legacy that goes from one generation to the next, to the next, to the next. And that's not the legacy, not just of divorce. It's like if you marry a guy or a woman who, or anybody, a human being who is an addict and you ignored that addiction, or somebody who is, you know, is a philanderer and they're always cheating, that stays into your family legacy, right? It gets passed on and we don't think about it. So it's not just the here and now cost. I think that's generational cost if we're not careful. You guys, do you guys see that?
I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah. I think we don't pay attention to this, and women don't pay attention to it.
Well, I think it's becoming a little bit more out, that intergenerational trauma,
Yeah.
you know, and how that gets passed. So I think that's becoming a little bit more in the public eye.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, so here's all the things that women are doing that are not helping. Let's talk a little bit about, so what would dating with a grounded, powerful strength actually look like? How do women do this differently? And so we came up with 10 things, 10 points. So to the women out there who are really hoping to find your life partner, and if you're really looking at how do I do this differently and not play by the old rules, here's 10 tips to date with a grounded, powerful strength. And we're going to just riff on each one. So the first one is two parts. One is be yourself. And another way of saying that is be the chooser, not the choosy. And so when I talk to clients about be the chooser, not the choosy, the choosy is the woman who's like, oh my God, I hope they like me. I hope they call me. I hope they think I'm cool. I hope that they think I'm fun. I hope they think I'm attractive. The chooser is the one who's like, you know, I want to see what it's like. How do I feel in this person's presence? Is this person a good fit? Do they treat me well? Do I think that they would make a life partner? Let me kind of assess this. Let me see. And it's very different. And you're showing up as authentically you. You're not trying to be someone who you think the other person wants you to be. You are being yourself, you're being real, and you're showing up and you're seeing if it's a good fit. So that's the first one, is be you. The second one is see who's in front of you. You guys want to talk to that? What does that mean, see who's in front of you?
Look at the person's behavior. Look at what they do. Watch them. Watch how they behave with other people. The waiters, the cab drivers, their friends, their parents, their siblings. Watch them. Because that behavior is going to be coming your way down the path. It may not be here right now because they're on the best behavior, but what they do there, they will be doing with you. So see who they are. Don't let your desperation and your fears blind you to seeing who that person really is.
Yeah.
I had this client, and so it was a lesbian couple, and they were having lots of trouble in their relationship. And I said, well, you know, how did you meet? What was true, you know, before you started dating? And it was kind of like, well, the big thing I remember is we were on our first date, and she got really, really pissed off at the person in front of us because their kids were taking a long time at the movie counter.
Yeah.
I said, huh. And what did you do with that information? You know, and it was kind of like, oh, well, it was after a long day. So it's that excuse thing.
Excuses.
Again. I'm not going to see what's really in front of me. Right. But I'm going to come up with all these reasons about that. And of course, she was doing the same thing to her now. So.
Right. And, you know, along that, what I see often with my clients is they're dating somebody, and that person you know, they're divorced once or twice. And the way they talk about their ex, and my clients will be like, oh, his wife's crazy. No, she's really in that job. And I'm like, how do you know? Oh, he tells me. You should hear all the things. And I'm like, it's a really good sign about a person's character in terms of how they speak about their exes, male or female. And you want to tune that in and not just assume that their exes were demons.
I can't tell you how many people I have had who now the person is breaking up with them under the same awful way that they had with ex number 1 and 2 and whatever. Yes. And they're like, oh, you know, I get it. He or she used to talk about how awful their ex was. Now I'm understanding why they were awful. Yes. They weren't going to take such bad behavior.
Right. One of the things I tell my clients who are dating is I often say to them, listen, one of your questions, as you know, after you've been dating for a little while, one of your questions has to be, if I asked your spouse why your marriage didn't work, what would they tell me? Right? What broke up that marriage? Because chances are they're bringing that right into this relationship, you know?
What a good question that is.
Okay, number 3, know your kryptonite. So your kryptonite that's the person who is bad for you, but who you love. So you're going to walk into a room with 100 people, and there's going to be that one person who, you know, let's say your kryptonite is you like the outgoing, fun, laughing, and then somehow you always seem to find out later that they have a drinking problem and they have a substance abuse problem, but you love their charisma and their outgoingness, and you met them at a bar where they were drunk, and it was like, know your kryptonite, right? Or another common kryptonite is somebody who is super successful and unavailable, right? But you like those powerful men. You like them who are never present and not home, but that's your kryptonite. So, yeah.
Can I say something about that? That feeling of being drawn to that person, it is like a magnet.
Yeah.
It's like an irresistible force, and you have to know it. You have to identify it. And as you watch yourself walking towards that person, you have to do an about turn and run the other way.
Yeah.
You know, John
powerful.
Bradshaw used to say that. When you see that person across a crowded room and you have to go up and talk to them, and this, and he's walk the other way.
Run the other way. Run the other way.
Run.
Don't walk. Don't run. Don't walk. You just gotta get the hell out of there, because it is a kryptonite to you. It's poison for you.
It is. You're super attracted to it, but it's going to poison you. Walk away.
Can I say another one that I think is a big kryptonite? It certainly was for me, and that's getting the fixer-upper.
Oh yes, I know that
You're
one.
irresponsible. You don't have a job. You this, you that. Oh,
Fixer-upper, I love
save
it.
you.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I like the
Love that.
fixer-upper. That's great. The fixer-upper.
That's great. Okay, number 4. Raise the bar on reciprocity. What do you want to
Like
say?
in the article, in the article that you were just reading, that would be a perfect example of somebody who did not reciprocate.
Yeah.
And it seemed like it wasn't noticed.
Right.
How did you not notice that you're always doing the driving while he's retired? That's not reciprocal. That does not work. It does not bode well.
Yeah.
Or another one that I was reading was the idea of, if it's kind of like, well, I'm available right now, so you should be available.
Yeah.
And then if you're not available, well, I can't be available on your time.
Right.
You know, that's not reciprocal.
That's not reciprocal. That's not reciprocal.
Who's always calling? Who's always setting things up? Who's always making up after you have an argument?
This is a big one. This is a big one because right now when you're dating, it's exciting and you don't mind and you think it's fun and it's all great. You know, when you are living together and if you actually get married to this person down the road, it gets old. It's heavy lifting to be the only one who's, you know, responsible for entertainment, the only one who's responsible for connecting, and for like, it gets old and it gets really lonely. It gets very lonely.
And that behavior is not going to change just because you get married.
Right.
So whatever you see is happening right now, this is the person. This is back to see who's in front of you. They're not going to change. The zebra doesn't change its stripes.
I love that. See who's in front of you. I forgot to say, don't fall in love with potential.
Right.
Yes.
Right? See who is this person now, not who can they be, because I'm telling you, a lot of people die before they ever reach their fullest potential. So falling in love with potential is not smart. See who's right there, warts and all.
And they
I always say sometimes, I always say sometimes, what percentage of the time are they this thing you like?
Oh, I love
versus
that.
the other, you know? So it's like, oh, well, 90% of the time they're a jerk, you know? Okay, let's look at that. Like, that's not a good relationship.
You need to walk.
Right.
No, you need to run. Yeah. All right, Dee, you want to look at number 5?
Sure. So number 5, we talked about have sex for the right reasons. So like, what are right reasons, you know, and that sort of thing. But I think we've all talked about, maybe one of you have an example, but the idea that I'm going to have sex because it's the third date and I'm supposed to.
That is crazy.
Yes.
Women, I just have to tell you, that is the most absurd thing I've ever heard. And if you buy into that, and if you play into that, then you are complicit with the stupidest, most gullible thing that people have ever sold women. So knock it off.
Really, like, you know nothing about this person. It's going to bed with a stranger.
Yes.
And if you want to do that, fine, but don't go looking for love if that's really what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then there's this idea of, well, if I have sex with him, then I'll get him to be in relationship with me. Neither of which is a very grounded place, and neither of which is, I mean, it's both of those are sort of manipulative.
Yeah.
And what is it saying?
If you have sex because you're afraid you're going to lose him.
Right.
So what are you saying about this relationship already? If this is what you have to do to keep a relationship, already you're covering up what it is if you have to do something that you don't really want to do.
Right.
Covering up the stench.
Right. Sex for the right reasons is about you genuinely thinking, what is it that I feel comfortable doing? Do I want to be sexual, right? Does it feel right to me? Not because I feel like I have to, or I feel like society tells me to, or I feel like I'm going to be called names if I don't, or I'm going to, like, genuinely, you tune in, tune out the world, tune into you and figure out, does this feel right to me? And if it feels right, go for it. But if you're doing it out of desperation or neediness or fear or, pressure, it's the wrong
Expectations. That's the other thing to add to that list. If you sense there's an expectation of you, and you're prone to feeling like you have to live up to other people's expectations, that could pull you out of your center.
Yeah, and that's not a reason to have sex. Not a reason.
Right. Well, it goes to being yourself too. Like it's like later on in the relationship, you're like, well, all he ever wants is sex, or all she ever wants is sex, and that's not what I, like, why can't we just cuddle? Or, well, I don't know. How did you tell them about that to begin with?
Right.
If you jumped right into having sex because you thought you were supposed to, or any of these reasons, then you've told them that that's who you are.
Right.
And then you're surprised that they don't know who you are.
Yeah. And listen, no doubt, this is like, no doubt, if you say no to sex, you are going to lose some people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good riddance.
And good riddance. You're losing the people that you want to lose, no matter how much that little girl in you is like, no. If you're losing somebody because you're not going to be sexual with them, good riddance. They're not the person. Before we started recording, I was saying, I feel like women have become the players of yesterday. They've kind of joined men around sex, right? Like, okay, I'm going to be a player so I don't get hurt. I'm going to do threesomes. I'm going to do open marriages. I'm going to do all these open relationships because I'm not getting burned or under the guise of my sexual freedom. And if you're having sex, you should feel good about your choices and about why you're doing it. And so you need to slow that down and not do it because you don't want to get burned or lost or left or whatever. Do it for the right reasons. Okay.
Okay, 6 was acknowledge and explore red flags. So what would you guys say about that?
I think that there are 1,000 red flags that women either totally ignore and don't see, or see and minimize.
Or rationalize.
Yeah.
Excuse.
Oh, he likes to party. I know he does drink too much sometimes, but it's just his friends, that's just what they do. Or, yes, he's cheated in his last 2 relationships, but he waited till the end. It was already going bad. That's why he cheated, right?
I like the one where it's, well, even before we were together, right before we were going to live together, right before we were going to get married, he or she had an affair. But they didn't mean it.
Right.
You know? Mm-hmm.
Those are huge. Those are tremendous red flags. Tremendous red flags. We said some of them already, like how they treat other people. If they have a hot temper with, you know, at work, you better bet that that's going to come back home.
Right.
It is. If you've caught them in 3 lies, that's a red flag.
Right.
You know? So you need to recognize those red flags. And, you know, it's not, every red flag doesn't mean you need to leave. But every red flag does mean you need to slow it down enough to look. And you've got to do an accurate, authentic assessment to see, is this something I can live with?
Also, you know, we've been talking about like physical things, but it's also the idea of when you tell them someone, are they listening? Do they remember? How are they caring? Are like, do they check up on, oh, I know you had a doctor's appointment, but you know, like what is the caring? What is the emotional back and forth? Like all of those are red flags too.
Yes.
That, you know,
Those
that
are green
rather than like, oh, well, they're just guys.
Well, if they're not, but those green flags when they do that.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, I love it. So recognize the red flags and do not just move past them. And
Are they present? Are they present? Are they capable of being present? Are they self-involved? Are they self-absorbed? Do they only talk about themselves? I hear that a lot. God, he's only talking about himself. Never asks me anything about me.
Right.
Something.
Yeah. Like in a first date.
Right. And are they defensive? I have so many couples in my office. It is one of the most damaging, you know, issues in marriage is defensiveness. So every time you say, hey, what you said hurt, or I didn't like how you talked to me. If they're like, what are you talking about? I didn't do that. Or they spin it around and they're all of a sudden, well, you talked to me like that. Or like that is a tremendous red flag. That is
huge.
Really
I'm so glad you brought that up. That is so huge.
It is huge.
They can't take feedback. They cannot take criticism. They turn it around and make it your problem. Huge. They cannot have an open conversation, cannot take responsibility for bad behavior. Huge.
You're always criticizing me.
Right.
You know,
that's a good
that's
one.
What they say,
wait, I got a better one.
Oh.
You're so controlling.
Oh, yeah.
You're so controlling. You're telling me you don't like that I'm drinking.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I would go so far, and I'm curious what you guys would say on this, but if you are with somebody who is really defensive and any feedback you give them, they turn it around or they say, I didn't do that, or they get angry about it. Honestly, I would walk now. I would walk now.
I'm with you because nothing can happen here.
It's the Donald, I say that's the Donald Trump syndrome.
Absolutely.
Right? I'm going to double down, I'm going to bully, or I'm going to, you know, get even more angry if you talk to me about issues. When they're that defensive, it means that you can't work through issues.
Right.
And so that's a tough one. I mean, if you're married, you're going to have to bring them in to do some couples work, and you got to tackle that defensiveness, and they can work through it. But if you're dating, I wouldn't mess with it.
Yeah, I'd leave. Yeah. I think the other thing is, you know, again, we're talking about the person who maybe gets angry or that sort of thing, but there's also the person on the other side who's kind of like, I can't do anything right. You always are saying it.
Oh, God.
You know, so that it's kind of like, now it's take care of me. You had the problem, but now take care of me.
Yes.
Poor me, that you, it's the same kind of
thing. The guilt-inducing victim.
Yeah.
Right.
The other one that's really tough, just kind of going off a little bit, but around walking away is verbal abuse. If you're with somebody with verbal abuse now, it's going to get worse, and don't mess with that. Why are you messing with that? You're starting dating, and if they talk down to you and are contemptuous of you, and they, you know, call you stupid or whatever, run, don't walk. you know.
And it's not a good enough reason to take it because they came from such a traumatic childhood.
No.
If they came from a traumatic childhood, good, they should go to therapy, but you want to
Exactly.
be in a relationship.
So that they don't repeat the trauma on you. Yes.
On you, yeah.
Yes. Perfect.
Exactly.
And you're not, and your job is not to save them.
Exactly.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
Your job
They
is
had a traumatic childhood. They have to go save themselves. You can't be
Right.
doing that. And
And
you can't be thinking that that's a doorway into a healthy relationship.
yeah,
Mhm.
so true.
Mhm.
You need to take care of yourself.
Right. And I'll do one more. That's the bleh, exclusivity. You can say that word. That a lot of times it's kind of, I think you said this actually before, Lisa, that women ask for what they think they can get, not what they want.
Yes.
And
All the
if
time.
what you want is exclusivity, that's when you ask for it,
Mhm.
not at some other point when you think maybe you can get it,
Right.
you know,
That's
kind of thing. I mean, I had a client where it was kind of like, well, I said I wanted to be exclusive, but he said he still wanted to see people. So I don't see people, but he does.
So
Okay,
I'm
wait a
exclusive
minute.
by myself, right?
Right.
So so when we talk about what are the things women do, there's a great example of what women do. Now she's already coming into this relationship from a one down place, and
That's
she's
right.
already accepting and lowering the bar and settling, because
Yes.
she's obviously she wanted exclusivity. She didn't get it, and so she settles, but she holds herself to exclusive. No way. Go
I
date.
know.
Go date others or end this one.
Talking about reciprocity, right?
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
Listen, women, oh my gosh, sometimes I just want to shake women. So women, you got to be really careful. You don't get to complain about men and bitch and moan about men and say all the things that men do, but then you accept the things that men do. Stop accepting it. Absolutely stop accepting it.
Yeah.
And does that mean you might be alone? Yeah, it means you might be alone. And work yourself into the place where you are confident enough and grounded enough to be happy alone. And the right guy, if you need him, or the right woman, if you want one, will show up, and you'll be able to hold your own in a way that was very different. But you taking all of this crazy behavior and then trying to twist yourself into a pretzel, stop it. Stop it. It's just, it's teaching men that they can do that whenever they want, and women are going to continue to keep, okay, I'll do that, I'll accept that, because I'll take you any way I can get you.
Right.
Ugh.
Well, I think we have to do a talk on being alone and the fear of being alone. I think that
So
should be
big.
our next.
Well, and I think, it's like, I'll be alone. And it's kind of like, okay, well, you can either be like, it's better to be with someone than no one. And it's like, really, it's better to be lonely in the presence of someone
Right.
than to be
I
alone.
know, right? That's like more lonely to me. Like,
Right.
when you're in the same room and you're lonely, when you're by yourself, it's very different.
Yeah.
I think that's a whole hour's discussion of
Really.
why there's such fear of being alone and what women will do to avoid having to deal with that.
Get good girlfriends, get, I don't know. Anyway, okay, so number 8, pay attention to behaviors, not just words. Arlene, you want to take that one?
Sure. Look at what they do and not what they say, because they tell you so much more by what they do than the words are really easy. Like in that story again, I love you, I love you, I love you. And then he treats her terribly, disrespectfully, totally selfishly. And this happens all the time. There was somebody that I knew who started dating someone, and she told me that she really, she didn't really like the way he treated the cab driver. And I said to her, watch out, because that treatment is coming home to you.
It is.
Did not listen. And 2 years later, my God, she was up to her earballs with really awful, awful behavior.
Yeah.
And you can't ignore it. You can't rationalize it. The words mean very little if they're not congruent with the behavior.
Yeah.
Trust your gut. If something doesn't feel right by the way the person is behaving, don't dismiss it.
Right. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's so hard for so many women.
Mm-hmm.
And
Which part? The listening to themselves and respecting their own
I think,
reactions.
yeah, I think listening to their instincts, and I think looking past the words to the actions.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I just had the thought, it's like when you do that, you're basically confronting the person in front of you and saying to them, you're full of shit. I don't believe a word you're saying, and I see through you. And I think that's a very hard stance for a lot of women to take.
It is. And, you know, just keeping him like grounded, powerful strength. You don't need to say you're full of shit to him.
No.
But you do need to, like, you need to say that, but not like that.
It's not the words.
Right.
But I'm saying that by calling them on their behavior, by seeing their behavior, you are in fact, by seeing it and acknowledging it and not sweeping it under the rug, you are in fact calling them on it. You are in fact saying, I don't believe what you're saying. I believe what I'm seeing.
Exactly. And that's so powerful. Women, that's so powerful. When you're able to do that, you're going to feel better inside, even if he walks. And I will say, in my experience, the more one partner stands up, the more the other partner steps up. But if you don't ask them to step up, they won't. Or maybe they will, but often they won't, and they don't have to.
That's right.
So
they're going to do what's comfortable and familiar to them. So if you don't hold them accountable to a higher standard of behavior and relationship, they're just going to stay at the comfort zone.
Right.
You train people how to treat you.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
So I think women, keep that in mind. You are training whoever you're dating what you're willing to put up with.
And you're training them as much by what you ignore as by what you know, hold them accountable.
Exactly.
Okay, so this goes right into number 9, which is address bad behavior when it happens.
And note what they do.
And note
their actions versus what they say.
Yes.
So if it, often I think what we get is, oh, you're being too sensitive.
Yes.
Oh, is it that time of the month? Oh, well, I don't think that's important. Like, so there's all these
your
businesses.
Problem, right?
No,
that's your problem.
That's your problem.
If you feel that way, that's your problem.
Right. So if that's what you're getting on the other side of addressing it, it's another time to walk in the other direction.
Right. Right. And, I hear a lot of women, when they're first dating, they're like so excited and they're happy and everything's so cool. And so this behavior happens, this bad behavior happens, and they cringe, but they're like, okay, I'm not going to say anything because it just happened now, and everything's
want to ruin the high. That's what did you say before, Dee? At first 3 months of a relationship, you're drugged.
Yeah,
you're drugged.
Drugged.
Yeah, everything okay. Yeah.
Yes. And so they let it go, and they don't say anything. Or the other thing that we were talking about with this is they blame themselves for the behavior.
Oh my God.
So the person
I see that all the time.
The person that they're dating, let's say the person that they're dating snaps at them.
Yes.
And the women look at themselves like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Oh, I knew
I was too this. I was too aggressive. I was too whatever. I was too something, right? So I just want to go back to something we said a minute ago about address behavior when it happens. I think it's also okay to address the behavior after it happens. If you find it very hard to address it because you're in shock or you're embarrassed, whatever is going on for you, that you can't do it, it's perfectly legitimate to say, that thing that you did whenever, that was not okay.
Love it. And in any way you can do a text, you can do an email, you can do it verbally. I mean, ideally do it verbally, but if you can't, Address it. You have to address it. And here's the rule about blame. The person who did the actual behavior is the one who's to blame for that behavior. So I don't care if I forgot to bring home the milk. If my husband snaps at me, he's responsible for snapping. That's his behavior. I'm responsible for forgetting to do the milk. I did not cause him to snap. So women, we have to get very clear on that. You don't make somebody be verbally abusive. You don't make somebody hit you. You don't make somebody lose their mind. You don't make somebody talk down to you.
You don't make them drink.
You don't make them drink. You don't make them cheat.
I think that's a hard one for a lot of women to get.
I know.
Yeah.
Men get it great.
Well, that's the conditioning, right? Men tend to blame, easier for them to blame others. Women tend to take it on. We have to get this. I have spent many sessions just trying to go over that very specific thing.
Yeah.
It's their behavior. They own it.
They own it. 100%. Even if you did something, you know, you didn't follow through with something, or you did something off. This and that goes both ways. If you did something bad, they didn't make you, even if they, you know, they whatever made a mistake before it, they didn't cause you to do something in response. Okay, last but not least, number 10. Don't put your self-esteem in another person's hands. What the hell does that mean?
Please.
What does that mean?
Don't let them determine your worth by whether they love you or don't love you or want to be in a relationship with you or not. If they don't want to be in a relationship with you, that's, you know, it may hurt, you may feel rejected, but it does not define your worth as a human being.
Yeah. And it's making room for a right relationship. They don't want to be with you. Great, move on. Don't beg and don't plead.
This isn't about your lovability.
No.
That's right.
You know, you have to believe that you are lovable. Your lovability isn't based on this person left me or didn't want to date me for the third date or whatever that happens to be.
So if you find yourself doing that, you have to really go back and work on your own self-esteem.
Right.
So you are way too vulnerable if you leave it up to the other person to determine your worth.
Right.
And I can't tell you how that is so big. I have so many people, you know, and this one woman, she goes into dating and I'm like, oh, there's 1,000 red flags, right? And then when he, you know, drops her or stops seeing her or he does some jerky move, her first comment is, I'm not lovable. What's wrong with me? How about
what? Yeah.
Who is this person? Like, it has nothing to do with you being lovable. Nothing. But that's really hard. That's hard. It's so hard for us to get, because so much of our upbringing, so much of our messaging is that our worth is tied in people's attention and they love us, and it's so hard. And
we blame ourselves, and we blame ourselves when we don't get something that we want.
Yes.
What we do.
Yeah. Okay. There are the 10 things. I just want to say to all the women, you know, we're like, oh my gosh, we do this and we got this. And I'm like, I want to show women. And we get it. We get it. Like we do so many of these things, and we've had to work these in our lives, and we know, you know, we're doing our best to help our clients. And you guys, you're wonderful, amazing women. You have to realize that. And you got to recognize when you are selling yourself short and when you are going off kilter, because that's the only place where your power is. It's within you. You cannot change anybody out there. They don't want to be with you. Good riddance. You find somebody who does, or you be okay with being alone until you find somebody who you think is going to treat you well and going to have a great relationship. Because you deserve that. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what should they do? What should women do?
What's the challenge?
What's the challenge?
Pick one of those. Pick one of those 10 things that we went over. pick one, the one that you feel is most relevant to you, that you resonate with, and watch yourself. Watch yourself doing it. Watch how it plays out. Watch how you feel. Just become much, 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 much more aware of that one thing. And then you can go through the whole list until you've exhausted it, and then check back in with us. And
yeah, let us know.
Yeah, let us know. We'd love to know.
Yeah.
And once you're focusing on that one thing and you start to change it, notice, how do you feel? How do you feel when you shift this? When you show up and you're dating differently in this area, how does that feel? Do you feel empowered? Do you feel scared? What's going on? Regardless of how the other person responds, you want to do a check-in with.
This is for you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, Dee, you want to do the challenge for men?
Yeah, so the challenge for men, what can you do with all of this as a woman is looking at this piece? Here's your thing. Be the person you want your daughter to date. You know, whatever qualities you would look for in, if you have one, or if you had a daughter, like, who would you want them to be dating? What would you want them to be like? How would you want them to treat her? That's how you want to be treating the people you date.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful thing to aspire to for men.
Yeah.
Right.
And with men, I would love for men to start throwing out all of the crazy messages you have received as well.
Right.
Because I'm watching men in my practice and they are struggling so much in their relationships. And it's such a shame what we do to men. And the only way out, men and women, is we have to start ignoring all the toxic messaging around socialization and what it means to be a man and what it means to be. You got to throw a lot of that out and start talking to other men when they're being jerks. Tell them. All they want to do is, you know, sleep with 1,000 people. You got to tell them. And women, you have to tell the women, you know, your women friends. We have to call each other on it and stop normalizing all these, you know, hurtful behaviors, because ultimately men and women, we all just want to belong, and we want to have it, we want it to feel good to come home, and we want to be loved. And so we're certainly not going to do that by paying attention to all the crazy messages, the harmful messages that are taking us awry.
Yep.
All right, everybody. It was fun, as always.
Yes. Good topic.
Very good topic.
Yes. If you are dating now, or you have friends who are in the, you know, daring to date and being courageous, pass along this podcast. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know what happens. We'd love to hear from you all. Until then, good luck. And remember, when you're dating, date with a grounded, powerful strength. Thank you again for joining us this week. And always remember, you have the power to change the world for women by changing how you walk in it. I challenge you to choose one way to stand in your grounded, powerful strength this week and be part of the ripple of change.